flying through the sky on a giant white hamster. Over Chatasia he goes with gifts from the externa. He's not good with time, but Father Hog is on his way. So hoglets, don't forget to counter or delay him for each day. Oh, Father Hog, Chatasian adventurer. Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be sharing with you the story of Father Hog, who is a bit of a Father Christmas Santa Claus figure in the world of Chatasia. So for anyone who's new, what is Chatasia? So this is my stuffed hedgehog Chutney, who I bought when I was 9 years old. And when I was 9 years old, I started creating the world which Chutney is from, which is called Chatasia. And on my channel, I'm sharing stories and tales about the land of Chatasia and the characters in it. So today is going to be a sort of Christmas special edition, although it's not Christmas, it's Hogmas. And today I'm going to share with you the story of Father Hog. Then I'm going to show some illustrations of Father Hog that I've done, and we're going to end on a high, which is I will sing you a traditional Chatasian Hogmas song, which I'm sure you're all looking forward to. If you do decide to skip ahead and go and listen to the song right now, which I'm sure many of you might decide to do, don't forget to come back here so you can understand what the hell the story is about. So, as many of you will know, this is the land of Chatasia. I'll put a map on the screen. But what is outside of Chatasia? So we have come across a land which is called Chisella. Chatasia is just full of Chatasian hedgehogs, but Chisella, as some of you will know, has more species than just hedgehogs. But what is the rest of what's around Chatasia? And the Chatasians don't know, and I don't know. There definitely are other realms on the planet of Petahog, but we don't know what they are, and the Chatasians just refer to this area as the Great Externa, and it's a great source of myths, legends, and stories about what exists in this land. Most of the stories suggest that there are many different climates beyond Chatasia. Some talk about deserts, some talk about icy mountainous regions. The deserts are definitely one of the climates which has captured the Chatasian imagination. One of the popular stories about the Great Chatasian Externa is about the Sand Witches. So let me tell you the short tale of the Sand Witches before we get on to Father Hog, because they are all connected, even though they don't seem Christmassy as of just yet. So let me tell you about the Sand Witches. So a very long time ago, we don't know how long ago, a very long time ago, there was a king who ruled an island in Chatasia, and he sent some of his most skilled and highly knowledgeable witches to go into the Great Externa to find a legendary flock of giant white hamsters who supposedly live in the deserts. And he sent the witches there to go and tame the white hamsters and bring them back to Chatasia for use, I suppose, as a bit of like a weapon, basically to keep the people of that island in check, using fear, I suppose. And so he sends his witches into the Great Externa Desert to go and find these white hamsters. And as the story goes, the witches did find the hamsters and they did tame the hamsters, but then they decided to rebel, and they decided that they didn't want to come back to Chatasia. They didn't want to use these hamsters against their own people, and they defied their king, and they decided instead just to set up their home in the great deserts of the Great Externa. And therefore they're known as the Sand Witches because they live amongst the sand. So many years after that, now we're more into more factual times, less legendary times, there was an era known as the Era of Expedition. And during the Era of Expedition, there were lots and lots of adventurers and explorers who were sent into the Great Externa, partly looking for territory, for Chatasia to expand their territory and their land, but also for knowledge and to start putting facts to all these myths and legends that are told about the Great Externa. And so there were hundreds of them that went into the Great Externa. And the most famous expedition was called the Thunder Snow Expedition. And these were the kind of, at the time, the most qualified and most highly thought of explorers. Basically, they thought these hedgehogs cannot die. So if they don't come back, we know that there must be something in the Great Externa, and they've set up their home there because these are our best and brightest, and so they will certainly survive. But none of the Thunder Snow explorers did return, and that kind of put an end to the era of expedition. I think maybe a lot of money and a lot of hedgehogs were lost on these trips, and we don't know where they are. They're just kind of missing in action. So sometime later, in more recent years, there was a lone adventurer explorer who was called Armadillius Hogg, and we are getting now onto this kind of Santa Claus type figure in Chatasia. And Armadillius Hogg made it his life's mission to go into the Great Externa and to figure out where are the sandwiches. Where are the sandwiches? This is a great phrase. Where are the sandwiches? And to, well, partly there were some rulers who were suggesting that if he did find the sandwiches, he should bring them back to Chatasia and have them held accountable for abandoning their king. But of course, this is probably decades after when the sandwiches left. So Armadillius Hogg decides to venture on his own into the Great Externa, having his own expedition to try and find the hamsters and the sandwiches and all the other monsters and legendary beings that live in the Great Externa. But as what happened with many of the explorers before him, unfortunately Armadillius Hogg didn't return from his expedition. And instead, what happened is his children, his hoglets, so these are children hedgehogs, of course, the hedgehogs, so little hedgehogs are called hoglets. His hoglets started a very big media campaign. And by media, Chatasia doesn't really have modern technology, so it was really newspapers and little talks in town halls. They started a big media campaign to bring back Armadillius Hogg. They wanted to send more explorers to go and find him and bring him home. And they famously, in their media campaign, called him Father Hogg, because of course he was their father and they were his children. So there were lots of sort of headlines of Father Hogg, etc. And the Chatasian government, Chatasian government and royal family, so really this is, for those who don't know, Chutney is a princess of Chatasia. So when we talk about the Chatasian royal family, we do mean Chutney's family. So Chutney's family, they declined to send anyone to find Armadillius Hogg, but they did create a legend out of Father Hogg. The hoglets were told, his hoglets were told that he would come back. He would come back once a year and leave a gift for them, and then he would go home. So of course there was a lot of criticism that the government was not going to send any explorers to go and fetch Father Hogg. Some people say that they were trying to hide something. Do they have some knowledge about the Great Externa or about what happened to Father Hogg and they don't want to share it with the public? I don't know. There are always conspiracies in Chatasia. But the story is that Armadillius Hogg did find, Father Hogg we should call him now, Father Hogg did find the giant white hamsters and became their king. And so he lives amongst the giant white hamsters in the Great Externa Desert. And what happens is once a year, he comes back to Chatasia to visit all of the hoglets in Chatasia, and he brings them a special gift from the Great Externa. As the tale goes, he picks his his favourite and strongest giant white hamster to pull his gift train across the Chatasian skies. However, there's a unique aspect for the sort of Chatasian version of this kind of Father Christmas figure. Is, of course, Armadillius Hogg, Father Hogg, was you know, he obviously got lost in the Great Externa. And how did he get lost? Well, they think because he lost his watch and he lost track of time and he wasn't very good at timekeeping. So what we have, I'm going to start showing some interesting objects. So what we have here is an object that may look familiar to many of you. This is a Christmas countdown. It does say Christmas, I agree with you. And what we have is this little character who looks a bit like Father Hog. There are lots of different representations of what Father Hog looks like, but this is one of them, a kind of red nose and a sort of hat. So this is Father Hog, and this is a bit like what they have in Chatasia. They have a counter, and because Father Hog lost his watch and isn't very good at timekeeping, what the Chatasian hoglets must do is they have a counter like this in their window, although theirs might say, looking a lot like Hogmus. They have a counter like this in the window, and every day the Chatasian hedgehogs, Chatasian hoglets really, it's for children, will move the little counter along so that as Father Hog is flying over Chatasia, he knows how many days he's got left until Hogmas night. Now, we have been doing this counting down in our house for about 3 or 4 years now. Chutney has to remember to move Father Hog every day. Otherwise, she won't get her present, and you don't get your present until you get to the 24th. I think the worst year we ever had was 2 weeks late. So the point of this is to teach Chatasian hedgehogs about punctuality, timekeeping, and consequences. So you don't get your present until you reach the last day. So I'm just going to check on my notes that yes, of course. And if you are wondering, well, what if all the different Chatasian hedgehogs all have different days because some of them keep forgetting? Isn't that a bit confusing for Father Hog? Yes, it is a bit confusing for Father Hog. He's already not very good at timekeeping. But it's not really in the Hogmas spirit to question the way these things work, okay? So we don't know exactly how this works, but it does work, and Father Hog is real, and Father Hog does bring his presents for the Chatasian hoglets on his gift train with his giant white hamster, and it's not in the spirit of Hogmas to question this. So what I will do is just get rid of this. And I will keep you updated on my YouTube as to how many days delayed Father Hog is this time around, because there is a strict rule that you can only move it once every 24 hours. So if you forget, you can't be moving several days ahead. I think on one of our past years, this countdown was in the background of Max was working, and he was doing some video calls when he was working remotely, and this countdown was behind him when he was doing his calls, and lots of people used to comment that the counter was on the wrong day, and Max had to kind of go like, no, well, we're not counting down for Christmas, we're counting down for Hogmas. So actually it's on the correct day, because I think obviously in January we were still kind of stuck on day 21. So yeah, so if you do have a counter like this, you could also try counting down to Hogmas and see when Father Hogmas visits your house. So in previous years, I have done some drawings, some sort of illustrations for the Father Hogmas story. I haven't finished doing them. There's supposed to be 3 in the set, and I've only done 2. So I will tell you the sort of summarized story along with the illustrations. And if you are watching this several years in the future, or maybe just a year, I don't know. If you're watching this in the future, look around, because there may be a link to an updated version which has the final drawing in it. I have said in the past that drawing my Paracosm is not like my favorite thing to do because I can't always get it exactly how I want it, but these are just illustrations to illustrate an idea and a story. They're not necessarily perfectly detailed or accurate. So I'll just tell you the Hogmas tale, and then we will do the song. I promise we'll do the song. And now that you've listened to all of this information about Father Hogmas and the giant white hamsters and him not being very good with time, you will be able to appreciate the sing-along song, because I'm going to put the words along the bottom so you can have a go at singing along. But let's just tell the classic Father Hogmas tale. It is quite short. I'm going to move. Is it this way that I need to move? Yes, so I can put it there. So, as the classic tale goes, 24 days before Hogmas night, The Chutasian adventurer, Father Hog, selects the strongest and bravest giant white hamster from his entourage to pull his gift train across the skies. The pair will travel day and night from the Chutasian Great Externa back to Chutasia, Maine, to deliver gifts to faithful Chutasian hoglets. Father Hog does not have a watch and relies on Chutasian hoglets to count down the days till Hogmas night so he can keep his journey on track. And now I am going to bless you all with my rendition of the classic Hogmas song. It must just be called Father Hog. I don't know what it's called, but you will recognize the tune. So Chutney's going to help me. So this is going to be the debut of Chutney singing on the internet. I am a bit afraid about doing this, but when I think about singing my silly song online, and I think about doing Chutney's singing voice online, it does make me, it's a challenge for me, you know, to be myself and to be authentic online. But all the reasons I can think of not to do it are all fear of what other people would think of me or what other people would say. So that's my Christmas and Hogmas gift to you. Is I hope that my small act of singing this song on my YouTube with my hedgehog, who's going to be singing in her voice, I hope that can be an inspiration for you to be yourself more often and to think less about how others may judge you and to share your gifts and your thoughts and who you are with the world. So that's going to be my Hogmas gift to myself and my little Hogmas gift to you. So now in full kind of like Band-Aid style, I'm going to get my headphones on and we'll be right back with you for the karaoke Father Hogmas song. Flying through the sky on a giant white hamster, over Chutasia he goes with gifts from the Externa. He's not good with time, but Father Hog is on his way. So hoglets, don't forget to count or delay him for each day. Oh, Father Hog, Chutasian adventurer. He's the only one to survive in the Great Externa. Oh, Father Hog, an entourage of hamsters wide. How fun it is to receive your gifts each year round Hogmas night.
Flying through the sky on a giant white hamster, over Chutasia he goes with gifts from the Externa. He's not good with time, but Father Hog is on his way. So hoglets, don't forget to count or delay him for each day. Oh, Father Hog, Chutasian adventurer. He's the only one to survive in the Great Externa. Oh, Father Hog, an entourage of hamsters wide. How fun it is to receive your gifts each year round Hogmas night.
Wow, that was a beautiful rendition of the Father Hog song. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. Right, so that's us for today. Have a great Christmas. Okay, well, be nice to yourself this Christmas. There'll be more coming from me and Chutney. I'm not sure how often we'll be singing on the channel, but Merry Christmas and see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.